Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the TED in Your Head podcast. I'm Ted Moreno, certified hypnotherapist and high performance coach, and I'm very happy to have as my guest today Rita Bocuzzi. Hi, Rita. How's it going?
Hi, Ted. It's going great. I'm really happy to be here.
All right, and I think I should mention that if you're of the Italian persuasion, you should say Bocuzzi, right? My wife's
Oh,
Italian,
look at
so
that. Awesome.
Rita Bocuzzi. All right. So thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time to come on to my podcast so we can talk about money and how to have a positive relationship with it, right? So give me an opportunity to read your bio. So
Mhm.
Rita is a wealth strategist, money education mentor, and movement builder, redefining how women experience money. She challenges the belief that financial stress is normal and instead teaches that clarity is the missing currency. After building wealth, losing it, rebuilding it, and facing both cancer and what she calls financial cancer, Rita now equips high achieving women, families, and business owners to move from confusion to control by connecting mindset to skill set in a way that is simple, strategic, and sustainable. As founder and CEO of Flourish Incorporated and executive vice president of Five Rings Financial, she is on a mission to financially educate millions because she believes when a woman understands money, she doesn't just change her life, she changes generations. And boy,
Yes.
is that the truth. I got to tell you, this is one of the best bios, introductions that I've ever said. It is beautifully written.
Thank
Excuse me
you.
for a second, but okay, confusion to control, mindset to skill set. It's just brilliant. I love it. And then especially that last line, because it's so true, right? When anybody, but women in particular, when they change their life, right? When they understand money, yes, you create generational wealth. So that's awesome.
I love it. Yes, thank you so much. You know what? I think there's another phrase that you're going to love is that creates what we call, it's that ripple effect, right? And that ripple effect is called collateral goodness to perpetuate.
Collateral goodness.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, let me ask you a few questions so we can understand better what you do. So you describe yourself as a money education mentor. So tell me a little bit about what that means and what you do as a money education mentor.
So, as a money education mentor, it's really looking at things from a high view, a macro view, if you will. It's like, if you're in the plane and you're taking off, it's not the 10,000 foot view, it's the 50,000 foot view. And what that includes, given my history, mentorship is about lived experience, right?
Mm,
It's not just the schooling. Schooling and education, very, very, very important. And when I speak with people and I say, if you learned what you little learned, especially my clients that have gone through this, and actually, I don't even, they tell me the common thread is if I would have learned this 20 years ago,
right, right.
life would have been so different because,
Hmm.
again, now they're seeing it with new eyes, new ears. So that visual auditory connection to the brain, right, and the neural pathways is different. So that's the mindset piece. It's how we actually are thinking and connecting in my world, our core values. And so the control is not so much control. It is, we have control over two things, our attitude and our actions. And that attitude, as you well know, Ted, is stems from our values and our belief systems that are formulated or indoctrinated, and we can go on into the cycle of beliefs,
Yeah.
etc., and habits. So there's the mindset. And if you don't have the belief system, you hear these phrases, I'm not worthy, I'm not good
Yeah.
enough, and we don't have somebody in our corner to say, yes, you are. This is just at the level of learning where you're at, and you actually know more. Most people know more. We all think we haven't had a money education, and every single one of us has. It's very rudimentary,
Yes.
but we have learned basic money math, which is addition, subtraction, and multiplication. And I like to play with women, my women audience, especially is because women tend to say, I'm not good with money. And I say, okay, if we go to the store and they're having a bunch of BOGO offers, how many
Hmm.
of you can do the calculation like that? And they all start laughing
Hmm.
because they know they can do it very quickly. So guess what? You can do it.
Hmm.
So once you connect that mindset, being in the financial industry, there's financial education, and financial literacy comes in many forms in the financial world. And so it's not always, how can I say, all the skin set. It might be some principles and certain things, but never have I seen it connected to mindset.
Mm.
So if you don't have the belief system, you can have, it's like having the tool belt,
Yes.
and you don't know that the hammer is made to pick up and hammer something in, or the screwdriver or whatever. If you're not,
Mhm.
don't know the tools. So you need to know the tools as well as the mindset. So that comes through a lot of lived experience. And then I always say it gets to connect to our set,
Mhm.
right? Vision boards are great, but there's got to be another connection. It can't just be the vision and no belief and no skills. It's the three. Those are the three pillars. And so with mentorship, I'm going to say, like what you're doing with your audience right now, this is why I'm so excited to be on TED in Your Head. Having listened to your podcast, the education piece connected to the mindset piece, and then skills and steps and exploring, that's what true mentorship is. And so I just get to do it in the world of money education because of my lived experience of wanting to create and change people's lives and put the clarity and able to help them to have clarity, and then the control of their attitude and actions so that this way they can get to their heart desires and their dreams.
So vision, belief, and skills. So you're not, skills is teaching people how money works and how to,
Principles,
all
a
of
lot
that.
of the very common one that many people don't know and people are
Mhm.
still learning, and I know I didn't learn it till I was in my mid 40s, was it's the eighth wonder of the world according to Einstein, and it's called the rule of 72,
Mm-hmm.
or it's called the power of compound interest. They're one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have somebody like Einstein who, is a genius, and he's teaching you a principle that we all get to learn, and it's one of the eighth wonders of the world. I mean, I think we all should really, at the core, children can learn this because it's basic division. It's
Right.
basic. And so these principles don't change. And that's just one of them. Accumulation is another, right? You know, our favorite things, taxes. And I always like to be playful with people, even though we, have this uncle, we may not favor giving all our money to this uncle because he might not be our favorite uncle,
Yeah.
right?
All right.
So the choice is up to us. And one of the most powerful other things that I learned was, and I didn't learn this till also in my mid 40s, was taxable and non-taxable or tax favored strategies.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
that wasn't a language that we spoke in our home or in our schools. So it really just
Yeah.
gets to be simple learning.
Ah, okay. All right. So those are the skills, and then you also talked about the vision, which is the overall picture of kind of where you want to go and what you want to do with your money, right? And
Yeah.
then you also, it sounds like you spend a lot of time on belief, which is mindset, believing that you can pull yourself out of a financial hole, believing you can accumulate wealth maybe to a level that you hadn't expected. And of course, I work a lot in mindset, but of course, you're the money expert. So that's really awesome the way you break it down. I really like that. So what experience like or skills or credentials, Rita, do you bring to your work as a money education mentor?
So the skills and the history and the expertise is really 2 decades of learning. I started way back. I mean, I can't even believe to say that, but I'm going to say, you know, my hair gives it all away. So we get to be better seasoned. And, with that, that's great because there's this journey, lived experiences, if we let them in the right way with the right mindset, like what you teach, it it, it it's the journey that strengthens us. Sometimes people look at you can look at them in a couple of ways, like the triggers that set us back or hold us back, or the strengths that we've now acquired because we are overcoming. And actually, the way I'm saying it right now was an epiphany to me just about a week ago because I go through my struggles too. So I
Hmm.
practice what I preach every day. So several years ago, I started learning. I'm an Italian mama, as you said. I wanted to teach my children how to cook, clean, and take care of themselves.
Uh-huh. Right.
And, when it came to money education, I was like, I know my parents, I call it a Monday money date. my dad would sit with my mom because they were immigrants, and my dad, if something happened to him, wanted my mom to take care of the three children.
Mm,
But it wasn't something they discussed with the children. They
mm,
taught us and told us to save, 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 save.
mhm,
My dad was 100% no risk guy. And looking back at that, that served them so well. We missed nothing. And my mother, who's currently in her mid 80s, is living this life on this stream of income. My father passed about 25 years ago,
mhm.
but they have a home paid off. And it's because they never lost any money and because they were always having conversations. So it always starts when we're young. We learn our money stories before we're 8, right?
Yes,
We
right.
learn those stories very, very early on. So this is why when we teach this education early on, because sometimes people go, "Oh, that's too complex." Well, because they're coming in the lens of, I say, "Okay, I'm 58. I'm not afraid. I'm going to be 58 shortly," and but I come with 50 years of, I'm going to say, extra baggage. And so I'm looking through that lens saying that 8-year-old girl can't learn it. But I've had class courses and classes with parents and kids where the 9-year-old daughter is explaining to the parents
Right.
what's going on. So,
Hmm.
again, that's a lived experience. So, and then I'm going to fast forward. Life will give us lessons. And one of the lessons for me was, experiencing a couple big market losses along with many other people. If I say '01 and '08, that might trigger some people, right?
Yes, right.
But I always ask, what did you learn from it?
Mm.
That was my question, or how do I get out of it? And so I'm going to say my natural knack. Somebody used to tell me, ask empowering questions. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? Because it's the level of those questions. But if nobody tells us what to ask, so I started learning about those questions and I became a question queen. And I started to implement asking things like, is this serving me? Is this not serving me? And so once we experience those downward losses, we're like, okay, built it once, can always build it again. And you do it. But after the second one in '08, in 2010, I got hit with a medical crisis. I got what's
Mm,
called tonsillar lymphoma, rare cancer. I was 43, soccer mom, super healthy.
mm,
My community and friends were shocked that I was the one that got cancer
mm,
because nowhere in the cards should it have been, but it was. And I really believe it was a blessing so that I would answer a calling that I call now to never
mhm,
allow another family to get what I call financial cancer.
mm.
Because one of the most demoralizing and despairing things to feel is be sick and see your finances fleeing from you or not being able to have the resources. And thank God, because I knew I had
Mhm,
built up a good resource system,
mm.
but back to back wipeouts usually are unsustainable. And that's why we really have a really bad um, situation with our economy around bankruptcies that are due to
Yes,
medical costs and
right.
home losses and business losses. And it's a silent epidemic no one's talking about. So I am so grateful that you're sharing that. So
Hmm.
that lived experience, going through workshops, actually going through about a dozen companies. I went through just 9 in about a 7-year period, learning what served me, what was aligned with my values, what was aligned with my beliefs, and what was the education. And that was very, very costly. And my belief system is that it shouldn't have to cost people like that. And no one gets to have to worry about their finances when they're sick. They get to focus on their health. So
So,
when I
so let me
found a,
interrupt you for a
yeah,
second.
oh, sure,
So
go
you,
ahead.
you went through several companies to do what? What kind of companies were
Well,
you referring
so
to?
what I did is I was like, so my question always was, there's no money education.
Oh,
And these
okay.
companies would promote money education. And I'd say, I want to learn your money education. I wasn't necessarily looking to be a financial person to become financially rich because that's kind of a promotion out there. And a lot of times we get burned by these, sometimes getting into a system. And one of the things that was happening is there wasn't a true money education learning. It was more about a sales learning and a
Oh,
process, a different kind of process learning. So when I went into companies, if they weren't aligned with my values, which are one, everybody had to be loving, which loving means they get to go at your pace, not theirs.
yes.
Loving means that I get to ask all the questions that I want and you get to be neutral,
Absolutely.
right? And that doesn't happen a lot. A lot of times you get in front of financial professionals and it's like, chop, chop, got to make a decision today. No, there's wisdom in in holding that timeline for yourself and saying, is this serving me, my family, my community?
Mm,
If it aligns with your faith belief and if it aligns with keeping you healthy and abundant. So
mm,
going through all those companies, I just there wasn't a connection with like this holistic education because none of them would teach about mindset. Not
mm.
one,
Right, of
not
course.
one. So I had to take extraneous, like courses from literally people who were teaching what's called wealth impact coaching courses.
Hmm.
And they talk about neurobrain science and how the science that connects neurolinguistic programming,
Hmm.
hypnotherapy, because the 6 inches of space is the most important real estate in the world.
The distance between your two ears.
The distance between your two ears, because it's already what like you are already experiencing it before you hear it. And then when you speak it, you're revalidating and hearing it again and reprocessing. And that's why we have more negative thoughts than positive thoughts,
Yeah,
as you will know in this cycle
yeah.
that goes through. So if we can only control two things, then how do I get really good at controlling my attitude
Mm.
around my mindset around money? That was my plight. And how do we incorporate two worlds that need to be together to create a holistic structure that includes accountability of ourselves, self-discipline, because no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to love you as much as you. And you get to be empowered around this. So now it's been 2 decades, and in those 2 decades, I put learning courses together to help young adults and women, as you said.
So you've attended learning courses and educated yourself, but you've also been to the School of Hard Knocks as well, right?
Yes. So after my cancer, I literally made it my life's mission that nobody would ever not know about something called living benefits, because had I known about it,
Hmm.
someone was trying to sell me on it, but they were pressure selling me.
Yeah,
And
right.
see, I'm not one of those people that makes me feel, I don't know, I'm just going to call the word icky.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you.
It just makes you feel icky.
Yeah.
And so they weren't giving me the time to process. And I said, you know what? I was the first one married, first one with kids, first everything. So my friends would come to me and say, Rita, what do you recommend? And I would always give them three because we're not the same. Their choices are going to be different. I would give them the top three.
Three
So I did
financial
the same.
advisors, right?
Well, actually, just life stuff, right? Like just life stuff. But then when it came to money, that was more important. I
Okay,
wanted to give them more than that.
got it.
And so I learned about money, and then that it's about giving me choices of which ways to, I'm going to kind of say funnel down where you're going. And I call it financial positioning criteria. It's
Mm,
learning those questions that are important to you based on your values and beliefs. And so workshops were important. Books was the number. I really started with the library, free,
mm,
free.
hmm.
So, and I started with free workshops. And right now we have an abundance of resources.
Yes.
And you get to write down, according to your values and according to your beliefs, what aligns with the mission and vision that you're going to accomplish, and how do you get there, and who are the right people for you. And really, it's just been that process consistent, keeps that sustainability and stability and security from having a major life event not have us go through bankruptcy.
Right, right. It really is amazing how much you can learn about money and finances by reading a book or going to a seminar. I mean,
Yep.
all you really need is the intention, like I need to be better with money or I need to have a better relationship with money. And you can read a book, you can attend a seminar, a workshop, or get acquainted with somebody like you. And that's the beginning of a journey that, it's a journey to prosperity and abundance. I read a book called Busting Loose from the Money Game, and that was such an impactful book. And then I took T. Harv Eker's, Millionaire Mindset
Mind
seminar,
intensive.
and that was
Me
really, really good.
too.
So let me ask you this. Okay, so let's say somebody watching this podcast says, "Oh my God, I love Rita. I want to work with her. I want her to be my money education mentor." So how would you work with somebody like that?
So there's a few ways that I work with people like that. I work with them as a financial consultant, and I'm in a very boutique niche area because
Yeah.
I really want people to have that part of their wealth protected and safe. So one of the common threads, so I've combined common threads of all the wealth courses, all the books. of things that I saw that middle income Americans just were not taught. 90% of us are just don't know,
Hmm.
right? So workshops, I host free ones. So like my parents' Monday money date, I do a monthly money date. That's a complimentary session, and people can go to Eventbrite and look me up. They can go to any of the social medias to Rita Bocuzzi. My website's achievefinancialaspirations.com. And so,
AchieveFinancialAspirations.com. Okay.
yeah, achievefinancialaspirations.com. And so a couple of platforms are piloting this year with there's a big push for financial literacy, which I'm super excited about. And I know that the component of mindset is not in most of the programs that are out there.
Hmm.
So group mentorship programs. I do one-on-one conversations, an exploration session. I always say the more you know, the more you grow. So
Mhm.
start somewhere and I will help you if you don't know where to start. If it's a book like The Retirement Miracle, because we have a mindset around retirement, but retirement is get what it gets to look like to you. And you may say that you've not been good with money up until now, is what one of my members
Yeah.
taught me to say. So if you say something is up until now, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you
So
can
they
learn.
can go those ways, and more community programs are launching. I'm looking to connect with schools and parent teacher organizations or any open corporate community programs that want to connect to bring this kind of learning so that we really can educate, empower, and elevate our society.
Awesome. And, you obviously you do a lot. Like I've spent a significant amount of time on your website and there's all kinds of things there. So it sounds like somebody can do like one-on-one work with you, one-on-one mentorship. Sounds like
Yes.
people can take free maybe workshops
Yep.
or Zoom kind of things, right?
Yes.
And
Zoom online.
kind of get introduction to what you do. And then there's maybe it sounds like there's some community engagement,
Community or even private groups. Sometimes company groups or get
Mhm.
together, and I will do a session for a family group or a
Okay.
corporate group.
So what's the most common way that you work with people, acknowledging that there's a number of different ways people can engage with you? What's the most common way, like if somebody's really serious about, moving forward fast into a better money mindset, what would that look
I
like?
have, so just like school,
Hmm.
right? A semester. So I have a 16-week session, which is 12 weeks of learning and 4 weeks of anchoring. And so that is a money education mentorship intensive
Okay.
that people can do either it's like a small group intentionally so that everybody gets the attention that they need. So that way, and the free, so those seem to be the extreme two ways, but now I'm doing like I said, I'm piloting a monthly attended
Hmm.
membership so that this way in a year you can get almost everything accomplished. I said in 24 hours you can learn what you should have learned from kindergarten to college in less than 24 hours.
Wow.
And you just need to commit to you. And the monthly membership makes it easy and light for implementation and has a society or a group or circle of people that are like-minded that we can connect and be accountable to one another and support one another in our experiences and grow as well as learning the mindset and skill set.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. And we'll kind of touch back on this a little bit later as far as how to
Okay.
get in touch with you. So,
Okay.
I mean, my next question is how did you get involved with this kind of work? But you've kind of already talked about that, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, when did you decide that you wanted to be a financial advisor or you wanted to teach money? Was it like after you went through that scary cancer journey, or I mean,
It
what was
was,
it
I'm
where you
going to
said
say,
this is?
let's
Go
see if
ahead.
I can show this. And I know people, but they can't see it. But here is my first workshop. I was barely healthy enough to even drive, but I brought my two sons
Uh-huh.
to my first. This was a cash flow intensive. And like I said, I would bring my children. And if you can expose your children, it's just another language. Financial confidence is not the same. It's financial intelligence is based on financial confidence.
Right.
And confidence is just familiarity with something. And
Sure.
if we're not talking about it in our homes and or we're hearing negative things about it in society, that makes us kind of want to have this pushback or barrier because you don't have to be like the emperor's new clothes and bury your soul in front of the whole, you bury yourself in front of everybody. And so really in that picture was taken in January of 2011 with my sons. In 2007 was when really I something inside me was I want to teach my boys and I realized that I didn't. And to be a good
Okay.
mom, I needed to learn. And then of course I got sick and that was the turning. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes really serious life events
Yes.
because when you hit rock bottom, the only way you have to go is up. But you
Mm.
got to be willing to put your hand out there to have somebody lift you up or pick up that phone.
Yeah.
And that for me happened in the form of phone calls, programs, friends, accountability partner that I've
Mm.
had. Honestly, at that event, I met my accountability partner who's been my accountability partner for 15 years now
Awesome. Yeah.
to keep me on track.
Sure, sure. So, wow, that's quite the story. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around like going through all of that and then transmuting or transforming that challenge into wanting to share with people information, that would save them from, let's say, financial bankruptcy or financial cancer.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this. What do you think is the biggest challenge that people face when they're trying to accumulate wealth? And maybe we should even define what that means, right? Accumulating wealth is different from making money, right? I
Yes.
mean, so making
Yes.
money is you have a paycheck or you're taking care of your bills, but accumulating wealth means, you have assets or money in the bank or you have financial investments that will take care of you,
Mhm.
if you're not working or when you retire. So what's the biggest challenge that people face when trying to accumulate wealth?
It's lack of clarity. It's lack of clarity.
Hmm,
It's really like you said, we can work hard. It's not about the income. It's actually not about the intelligence. Most of us are sitting here trying to do the right thing. And I'm going to say, if I, and I ask this question a lot of times of people is if looking back, you had clarity in the decisions that you could make to never lose money due to whatever life event,
hmm,
how different would your life be today? And people would
hmm.
say, God, I'd be a millionaire or a multimillionaire.
Sure.
And so when there's a structure for stability, security, and sustainability, with the assets you have, balancing, I call it creating a financial village. Most of us are taught to we have our house, and our house typically has things like CDs maybe in it, savings, checking, high yield savings, those kinds of things. So great, really should have an emergency savings, right? I call it an ER fund, right? You don't want to end up in the emergency room. It's an emergency saving for those kind of life events. And a lot of us are taught to build a tower. So when you think about this tower can be diversified. We talk about diversification because you don't want to put your eggs all in one basket, but you also don't want to put it all in one tower
Right.
because when the tower gets hit,
Hmm.
by a market loss, by a medical crisis, that tower usually comes toppling right on top of the house,
Right.
depleting the reserves and everything in it. So when you create a financial village is created in phases of
Mm,
life.
mm,
So you might have some retirement planning assets or leveraging some tax favored indexed strategies and understanding whether those strategies have what's called a 0% floor, where there's a book called The Power of Zero, Zero is your hero, and why. There's actually a great YouTube video on it.
mm,
And so understanding that protecting part of that,
mm,
wealthy people always protect their downside risks, so they have a downside protection. So that means they grow their money in a protected state, and then with excess, they do accumulation. Well, middle income Americans are taught accumulation first. Grow your money, grow your money, grow your money, and then
mm,
and then I'll protect it.
mm, mhm.
But that's like driving the car on the freeway with no insurance. And then when an accident happens, you go to the insurance company and says, I had an accident and I need my insurance.
Mm,
What's going to happen?
mm.
You're out of luck.
So you're talking about financial instruments that are not going to allow you to lose everything, right?
Correct.
Like
At
in some
least
kind
for
of
part of your portfolio. So the
right.
part that you don't want to lose. That is one key point. Exactly. And I
Okay.
appreciate you clarifying that.
Okay. Okay. So people not having clarity about how to go about building a financial village, or what are the upsides of, diversification is the biggest challenge to accumulating
Yes.
wealth. Whereas if we would say you know, the mindset is, oh, I just got to save up a bunch of money. I just got to put more money in my
Yeah,
savings, right? And so your money's not, I mean, maybe it's growing, even if in a high yield savings, it's growing at 3%, as opposed to investing it in an, IRA or some other kind of thing. Or,
some other kind of
yeah,
instrument.
okay, got it, got it,
And
got it.
there's different ones. So there's because sometimes IRAs and annuities, by the way, people have different feelings around those instruments, and
Yes.
we get to ask ourselves why and how they're different.
Mm,
So again, learning the differences, which comes with the workshops and the reading. So that's where the clarity comes in because it's not clear right away.
right.
It's just like anything else. Somebody was telling me, well, how do you get that? Well, they had transition careers. I said, so when you train, it was completely different careers, right? So when you transition to a new career, you get trained, you start learning,
Mm,
but money is an everyday part of our lives.
for
And I
sure.
always say we are the CEOs and all our business owners for our own homes.
Yeah.
So how is it working?
Yeah, and there was a time in my life when I didn't want to think about money or talk about money. Obviously when I was much younger, as long as I had enough money to have fun, I didn't want to talk to anybody about any kind of financial investment. In fact, I remember I think I was in my 30s and I was working for a company called Nature Company. Now it's Discovery Company. And it was a little store in a mall in Tucson, Arizona. And my manager said, you are contributing to the 401k, aren't you? And I'm like, what's that about? And he's like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, no, what is it? He's like, oh my God, whatever money you put in, they'll match it. I'm like, what do you mean by that? They're going to give you free money. I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that, right? So, I mean, and even then I put it off and put it off till I could actually sit down with somebody and figure that out, right? But, I think the whole money conversation is, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it. It sounds complicated. It's, triggering. It's, makes you feel bad about yourself if you haven't been able to do it right. So there's a
Because nobody's
lot.
taught the mindset piece about
Well,
it,
exactly.
right?
So talk a little bit about like what a money mindset is, or maybe briefly, like how would you know if somebody has a
Mhm.
money mindset? So help us understand
Okay.
what that means.
So money mindset is, well, first of all, I always align it with core values. And we talked about the word wealth. So wealth for me actually is spelt a little bit differently. It has the word health with the W in front of it. Because if you don't have your health, you don't have your wealth, right? If you
Hmm.
cannot work, if you cannot function mentally, physically,
Right.
all of that. So when you have a good mindset, meaning you're aligned with your core values. Core values, I look at it as a compass. Compass has a dial and it almost looks like a clock too.
Hmm.
That dial does something where it keeps you on point and online. So it's
Yes.
about a focus, right? It's about a vision, it's about a focus. How you get clarity on it is when you know I always call it the top five core values. That compass also creates boundaries. Those values when someone's speaking to you, like even right now, people approach me to come work with their companies, and I get to make a decision of whether it's in alignment with my values or not. That's usually the easiest one. And so what's my focus? So what are my values? What are my belief systems? How does this empower others? So again, asking empowering questions. And then literally I write it all down. I don't just like think about it in my head because getting to your priorities and just getting familiar, the scare, the fear, the worry about embarrassment, shame, blame of the past is because we are keeping it to ourselves. And so now all these, I'm going to say, I don't want to say completely unrealistic stories, but sometimes it's almost like it becomes this festering pool of stories that you get all wound up in.
Hmm.
So if you can have a safe space and a safe place to have a discussion to normalize, okay, this is very clearly what are my values? Because people will talk to you and they can try to shift you or convince you to do what they want you to
Right.
do if you don't control the situation. So again, I keep on saying core basic values, then the belief systems and what are your next best steps, how it serves you. What is the focus? So it's all also starting out with what's the purpose? What's the purpose of whatever discussion you're talking about? So for young people, they don't want to prioritize when they're 60s. They can't even see that. But
Right.
the reality is, if we teach you that right now, there's three phases to money, and it's like it's now, it's those mid years, and it's your retirement years.
Hmm.
Regardless of what phase it is, you must start it now to
Right.
make a difference in each phase. That
Yeah.
part is not an option. And the fact that when you do it, it's actually costing you money. And when
Hmm.
we can show young adults how much it's costing them, instead of 20 years into the future or 40 years into the future, we're now going, oh my gosh, that cost me hundred thousands of dollars. And I'll give a simple example. Um, I'm just going to call it the like a $5 coffee store.
Right. Yeah.
And if you're spending $5 a day on coffee, the choice that you're making right now is to retire them early and drink your future away or
Yeah.
save a portion of it. I'm not even saying all, a portion of you.
Sure.
Even the 401ks. One of the biggest learnings that I find teaching my young adults is, are they just doing the match or are they doing over the match? Because sometimes they're, oh my gosh, it's free money. Let me do all of it and more. The problem with doing and more in an
Mm.
at-risk situation is their money on the front line protecting your money, or is your money on the front line? And when a market hit happens, you're taking the full blow.
Yeah.
And then you got to come back from that loss.
Mm-hmm.
And when you
Interesting.
come back, this is where money teaching averages versus actual is very different in the money world. And that's a bigger course
Conversation.
explanation. But
Yeah.
in the reality of it is like if there's a market loss of 40%, you got to make up 80%, not 40. And
Right.
most people don't realize that. So the journey is now twice as long.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, this is very sophisticated stuff.
It
So,
is.
I mean,
That's why I
right?
do it with visuals and slow by slow, like step by step.
Okay, okay. So let me ask you this as we begin to wrap up. So if you could give people three pieces of advice, like somebody's listening to this podcast and they're like, well, I don't know if I'm ready for a money education mentor. Maybe I'll check out Rita's website. But if you could give somebody three pieces of advice where they're going to be like, yeah, that was definitely worth watching or listening to, three pieces of advice regarding money, what would they be?
Okay. The first one is be open to exploring and receiving.
Be open to
Because you can,
exploring and receiving.
yep. Because if
Okay.
you're not open to receiving and like, okay, I'll go read it, I'll go look at it, and it's just kind of this haphazard, it's how you
Hmm.
approach it, it's the attitude.
Hmm.
So make sure you're taking, it's not the dog wagging the tail, right? It's a, you know what I mean, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
that you are focused on what you are and know what is the purpose of every dollar that serves you because every dollar is like a person that's serving you. And what do you want the outcome to
Hmm.
be?
Right.
So
Okay.
that is really all encompassed in get educated, explore, and receive. I would say I'll give you two books. Like I said, The Retirement Miracle by Patrick Kelly gives wealth strategies to leverage things on your side. It's like a 2 hour read. Do it, invest in you
Okay. So the
before
name
you
of the book is
invest in an account.
Retire. What's the name of the book? Retirement. What now?
Retirement Miracle
Okay.
by Patrick Kelly.
All right. So I'll post a link to that book on the show
Mhm.
notes. Okay. So, and
And one
what's
of
the other
my
book?
other favorite books is The Volatility Shield
Hmm. The
by
Volatility
Patrick,
Shield.
mhm, by Patrick McKnight.
Okay. All right.
And it's like a little
Okay.
novella. By the way, these fingers are like skinnier than my pinky finger.
Oh, okay. So they're easy books to read.
Easy books to read.
Okay.
And I say commit to a contract of wins weekly in leveling up your finances if that's one of your goals. And what that is you literally write a little contract. Here are my top three priorities. I'm going to read 10 pages a day. I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to do and commit to the actions. And there's a book by James Clear called Atomic oh my gosh, Atomic Habits,
Atomic
so that
Habits,
you
yeah.
start James Clear.
Yes.
And I
Familiar with that
love
book, yeah.
you, and you know the other book is The Millionaire Mindset, right?
Right, which is an awesome book. It really that changed kind of changed my life, yeah.
And financially, there's a lot of good financial nuggets in there
Yeah.
because he talks about separating things out. And I
Yes.
actually reference that all the time.
Okay.
And I'm going to say, know your core values, anchor into who you are, and then stand for who you are. So that means once you know what your values are, when you're talking to people and you're acknowledging that you might not be feeling just right, you can even ask people, so what are your values base? If they
Yeah.
aren't in the same alignment with you,
Yeah.
you get to move on to the next person. That's why there's so many people in the world to work with.
True, true, true. Okay, so the three pieces of advice would be number one,
Good.
be willing to receive and go out there and look for information and have an intention that like, yeah, I want to get something out of this, right? Number
Right?
two, educate yourself by reading, right? So you recommended some good books and then have the discipline to have some wins, like I'm going to read this book or I'm going to listen to this podcast, right? And then
Right?
the third thing was be clear about what your values are in regards to accumulating wealth so that you're not, you don't end up on some kind of slippery path by some, silver-tongued person
So,
trying to make you do something that,
right? And you can take the actions that align with those values.
yeah, okay, that's awesome. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you? And so again, your website, can you repeat that, please?
Achieve financial aspirations.com.
Achievefinancialaspirations.com. So I'll have that
And
in
there's a
the
little
show
journal
notes.
pop up, and basic again, everything is no pressure in my world because the pressure is what makes us want to be defensive and protect ourselves. It's all about just having a conversation. So if they can also go on Instagram, they can go to my link tree, they can book a free 20-minute, I think it's a 20-minute session on there, so that we
Okay.
could just have a conversation of what direction you might want to go.
And what's your
And or they
Instagram?
can
What's
it's Rita Bocuzzi, Rita,
uh
B as in boy,
uh
Occuzzi.
Okay, so I'm following you on Instagram.
Yeah,
So that's
thank
awesome. All right,
I'll link.
so maybe if somebody wanted to find out more about what you did, they would follow you on Instagram and they
They
would
could
go to your
DM
website.
me.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome.
And then they could go on Eventbrite for the free complimentary workshops.
Eventbrite. Okay, and they would just type in your name on
They would
Eventbrite.
just type in they'd click the link tree and it'll say events, and then they
Oh,
click events,
the link
and
tree
the
on
event will
your
pop up. The next
Instagram.
event will pop up.
All right, very good. Wow. Wow. Boy, we packed a lot into this like
A
half
small
an hour or
session.
so. Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't even know what to say other than, you bring a comprehensive approach. I mean, a lot of people want to like say, "Oh, it's simple." But anything worth having is, I mean, the idea might be simple, but the journey of creating, let's say, a financial village requires a step-by-step process and, like you said, clarity and intention and a mindset, right? So, and most people, I think, or a lot of people aren't maybe ready or willing to put in that time, to it's too big a hassle or whatever. But I can see that people that would want to work with you, they are serious about
Right.
not only creating a money mindset, but changing their relationship to money and doing a complete overhaul of their finances so that they feel more in control, more empowered, and more clarity. So, what a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Well, and comprehension gets to simplicity. I always think about people in sports.
Mm.
To get to the wins, you get to practice and you get to have grace and space for yourself in that journey, and it gets to be at your pace. So you don't have to run the race fast. You just got to run the race at your pace,
Okay.
period.
I like that. I like that very much. Okay. Well, Rita, thank you so much. What a
Thank you.
interesting and fascinating conversation and
Thank
you
you.
have such
Likewise.
great energy and I appreciate you taking the time, okay?
Thank you, Ted. Thank you for having me here. It was an honor.
It's been my pleasure. So everybody, if you go to the show notes at tedmoreno.com/blog, we'll post a little blurb. You could listen to the podcast there, and we'll have all these links as far as the resources Rita suggested, as well as how to get in touch with Rita. So Again, Rita, thank you so much. You take good care, and
Thank
don't be
you. Thank you
surprised if
so
I call
much.
you back again and say, okay, let's talk about this a little bit more,
We
okay?
can break it down.
All right,
Yeah.
then.
All
Take good
right. Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.